The Great Maya, an Ottoman survivor's haunting tale of the Battle of Vaslui, 1475. As narrated by Mehmed Pasha, Agha of the Janissaries, now a broken man in retirement recounting the grim day of January 10th, 1475. The cold bites deeper than any blade, even now, 50 years removed from that accursed day. They call it the Battle of Vaslui, or Podul Înalt, the High Bridge, a name that mocks the low, treacherous ground where our ambitions drowned. We, the glorious Ottoman army, the very hammer of God, had never known such utter, humiliating defeat. Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, the shadow of Allah on earth, had dispatched us to humble the upstart Prince Stephen of Moldavia, to remind him of his tribute. Instead, we faced not just an army, but the very land, the weather, and a devilish cunning that turned our strength into our undoing. I was an Agha of the Janissaries then, a veteran of countless campaigns, my scimitar stained with the blood of infidels from the Balkans to Anatolia. Our numbers, oh our numbers. Some whispered 120,000 men, others a more conservative 60,000, 80,000. Even the lesser figure dwarfed Stephen's ragtag force of perhaps 40,000, a motley crew of professional soldiers, yes, but also armed peasants, men with axes and scythes, driven by a fanaticism we had rarely seen match our own. Our Bey of Rumelia, Hadim Suleiman Pasha, a formidable commander, had every reason to be confident. We had crossed the frozen Danube, marched through Wallachia, and were now deep in Moldavian territory. Victory seemed a mere formality. The treacherous land and Stephen's cruel hand. Our advance in December 1474 was cursed from the start. Stephen, the Giaour dog, had employed a brutal tactic. Scorched earth, villages lay empty, crops burned to ash, wells poisoned. The land itself became our enemy. Our horses, our men, starved and parched, cursed his name with every agonizing mile. The Moldavian skirmishers, like wraiths in the fog, constantly harassed our supply lines, picking off stragglers, never engaging in open battle. They melted into the forests and marshes, leaving us frustrated and weary. Suleiman Pasha, seeking sustenance, diverted us towards Vaslui, lured by false reports of untouched villages. It was a trap, a meticulously laid snare that only became apparent when it was too late. We marched through a narrow valley, the River Bârlad winding beside us, its banks shrouded in a dense, unnatural fog that clung to the freezing air. The ground was treacherous, a mix of frozen mud, hidden bogs, and dense undergrowth. Our grand cavalry, the Sipahis, proud and swift, found themselves bogged down, their mobility nullified. The Janissaries, the elite, hardened infantry, found no firm ground for their formations. We were a mighty fist, but we could not clench. The roar of horns and the chaos of hell. The day of battle, January 10th, began in a suffocating silence, broken only by the squelch of boots and the jingle of harness. Then, from seemingly nowhere, a piercing, eerie sound cut through the fog, the blare of Moldavian horns echoing from the hills, amplifying in the dense air. It was a sound designed to disorient, to terrify, and it worked. Our vanguard, caught off guard, stumbled forward into the mists. What followed was not a battle, but a slaughter. Stephen had positioned his main force at the narrowest point of the valley, just beyond a collapsed wooden bridge, a bridge we had broken trying to cross earlier, foolishly. Our cavalry, trying to press forward, either plunged into the icy river or became easy targets for Moldavian archers hidden in the fog. As our initial waves surged, they were met by a volley of arrows, a hail of musket fire, and then, from the thickets on either side of the valley, the Moldavian peasants, wielding their crude but deadly weapons, swarmed us. They knew every inch of that hellish terrain. Our soldiers, disoriented by the fog and the relentless horn blasts, found themselves fighting not a disciplined army, but a swarm of vengeful phantoms. The worst came when, simultaneously, Stephen unleashed his main force. They attacked from all sides, seemingly from nowhere, their numbers appearing far greater than we had imagined. And then, the bugles. Moldavian trumpeters, hidden behind our lines, began to sound their calls. In the dense fog, amid the chaos and the screams of dying men, our units became utterly confused. Some turned to face the phantom enemy behind them, breaking our formations. Panic began to ripple through the ranks. The retreat and the butcher's bill. Suleiman Pasha, a brave man, tried to restore order, to reinforce our lines, but it was useless. The fog, the terrain, the relentless, coordinated attacks. Our grand army was not simply defeated, it was broken. The order to retreat was given, but it was no orderly withdrawal. It was a rout, a desperate scramble for survival. The Moldavian light cavalry and their Polish allies pursued us for 3 days, their blades finding purchase in the backs of our fleeing soldiers. The marshes swallowed men whole, the cold claimed those wounded, and Stephen, the merciless victor, showed no quarter. The stories that filtered back were grim, our captured soldiers impaled on stakes, their corpses burned. 100 of our standards, symbols of our pride and strength, were captured. The Beyler Bey, Suleiman Pasha, barely escaped with his life, reaching the Danube only by a miracle. The losses, the whispers spoke of 40,000, even 45,000 dead. Mara Brankovic, Sultan Mehmed's stepmother, a woman who knew the might of the Ottoman Empire, reportedly told a Venetian envoy that Vaslui was the worst ever defeat for the Ottomans. Our glorious army shattered, our pride wounded beyond measure. The echoes of defeat. The Battle of Vaslui was more than just a lost battle. It was a psychological blow. It showed that the seemingly invincible Ottoman war machine could be defeated not by a grand crusade, but by a smaller, determined force employing cunning and leveraging their knowledge of the land. It stalled Sultan Mehmed's westward expansion into Central Europe, giving other Christian powers a desperately needed reprieve. I survived that day, but a piece of my soul remained in that fog-shrouded valley. The screams, the confusion, the sheer terror of being hunted by an unseen enemy in a land that seemed to conspire against us, it never truly leaves me. We were accustomed to conquest, to the terror we inflicted. At Vaslui, we tasted our own medicine, and it was bitter indeed. The grand designs of the Sultan, the inevitable march of our empire, had met a defiant wall, built not of stone but of mud, marsh, and the indomitable will of a small prince named Stephen. And for that, the name Vaslui will forever be etched in the annals of our history, not as a triumph, but as the great mire where Ottoman might stumbled.